Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, we're going to be breaking down the 2024 Procore Championship on the PGA Tour, which is formerly the Fortinet Championship, which is formerly the Safeway Open, which is formerly the Fries.com Open. I don't know if it had a name before that, but that is the event that we're talking about this week, formerly the Fortinet Championship. This is the annual PGA Tour event played at the Silverado Resort course in Napa Valley, California, and it has a brand new name this year. So it's also got quite an interesting field, and the course it's taking place at is one that's hosted an event on the PGA Tour for quite a while, so we have a legitimate sample size to look at. We know what we're looking for at this course. We know the field that's going to be here, and so we're going to break it all down here for you on this episode. We're going to take a look at the course itself and what type of golf excels here, and then we are going to take a look at the field and see if we can identify some guys who need to be in your DFS lineups and on your betting cards this week. This will be a little bit of an abbreviated preview because we are in the middle of the fall swing of the PGA Tour. Meaning that a little bit more of my time and focus right now is on college football than golf, but I'm still going to give you guys the full breakdown, still going to give you guys everything you need to know in order to have a winning week here at the Procore Championship. And while you're here, make sure you subscribe to the channel. That way you can be with us for all of our golf content through the rest of the fall swing, as well as next PGA Tour season, as well as for the college football season and NFL season that's currently going on. So anyway, let's go ahead and end the intro there. Let's go ahead and dive into Silverado Resort. All right, so the Procore Championship, still got to get used to saying that, is taking place at Silverado Resort, the North Course, which is located in the Napa Valley of California. This is the PGA Tour's only yearly stop in Northern California. So quite an interesting spot, and like I said, it's been hosting this event for quite a while now. This is a par 72. It is a little over 7,100 yards, making it one of the shortest par 72s on the PGA Tour. Now, what's interesting about the Silverado Resort is that it technically has some of the tightest fairways on the PGA Tour, but yet it has some of the widest landing zones because the rough is not penal. The trees that line the fairways are quite a ways away from the fairway. So basically, if you have a wayward drive, you're not going to get punished very much. You really have to miss in order to be losing a ball off the tee here at Silverado Resort. The rough itself is Kentucky bluegrass, which is actually the most predictive kind of rough. It's not like some of the other rough you see in California where you see Bermuda or Kikuyu rough. It is Kentucky bluegrass, which tends to be some of the easier rough to hit out of, especially when it's not grown up. And traditionally, it's not very grown up here, right? Like this is a resort course in its name, Silverado Resort. And so they tend to keep this course pretty playable for the amateur golfers and even on PGA Tour weeks, they can get the course to play firm and fast. They can tuck the pins, they can move the tees back. But at the end of the day, this is still a resort course. It's still not going to play super difficult. What you're going to see a lot of here is guys just bombing driver off the tee on par fours and par fives. There's very little reason to lay up. And then they're going to have wedges into greens. Like I said, this is one of the shortest par 72s on the PGA Tour. And so when you have 4 par fives, when you have a short course giving guys wedges into greens, it's going to tend to play pretty easy. The winning score is probably going to be around -20. And basically, at the end of the day here, the other kind of strategy you could go with is you could play, the more plotter game where you keep it straight and accurate and in the fairway and give yourself plenty of opportunities to hit the greens. The bottom line is this week, missing a fairway is not nearly as punishing as missing a green. You want to hit a lot of greens this week because the more birdie looks you can give yourself, the better, right? And so really, there's a lot of paths to victory. There's a lot of different types of golfers that have excelled here. But at the end of the day, hitting greens is above all what you need to have happen. And really here, when you look at the past winners, Sahith Theegala winning here last year, Max Homa winning here, the previous 2 years, him winning back-to-back, those are kind of longer hitters off the tee, but they're not super accurate. They can be good approach players, and they're generally good putters. The year before that, you had Stuart Sink winning it in 2021. 2020, I guess, fall 2020. Yeah, fall 2020 is when Stuart Sink won it. And he is not a long hitter by any stretch of the imagination. And so, he kind of had the formula of, hey, I'm just going to keep it in play, keep it in the fairway, dial it in on approach, make the putts, right? And so really the winners here in the last 4 iterations of this tournament have exemplified the 2 paths to victory. Either bomb it and have a wedge in, whether it's a wedge from the rough or the fairway, who cares? Or hit it in the fairway, hit the greens, and just hit more greens than your opponent, right? And so really that's what you want at the end of the day. Is you want guys who are going to hit greens. You want guys who are going to hit putts. Like that's just the secret at the end of the day. So this is a course really that, to me, when all is said and done, when you think about the key stats here at this course, approach play is always going to be at a premium, right? It's still going to be at a premium this week because your ability to hit those greens is crucial. However, I think off the tee play is going to be pretty darn crucial as well because your ability to hit those greens is going to be impacted by your ability to do one of two things. You either want to be really long or you want to be really accurate. I don't think this is a course where you have to be long and accurate. I don't think you have to be elite off the tee, but I think you do have to be in one way above average off the tee. And then also, I think that this is a super good week to look at putting, specifically putting on POA grass, because when you're looking at these California courses that feature this POA grass, there's not a lot of them, and guys who play well in California tend to play well in other areas of California just because you see the similar agronomies, especially with POA on the greens. So I would place value in guys who have had good finishes in the state of California in their career. I mean, just look at Max Homa. All of his wins on the PGA Tour are in California except for the Wells Fargo Championship. I also think this is a great week to look at green irregulation percentage. Just hitting greens this week is going to be the number one thing you have to do to win. And then birdie or better percentage, I think, is another good thing to look at this week, just because you're going to have to make birdies to win. To get to -20, you're going to have to make at least 20 birdies, right? So that's really what I'm looking at this week in terms of the key stats. In terms of the comp courses, this is not an easy course to comp because the winners here have just had such random success at all other types of courses. But the ones that I would look at Detroit Golf Club. That is another course where the fairways might not technically be super wide, but the landing areas are. It's another course where you're going to have driver and a lot of wedge in hand on the second shot. The agronomy is just not the same because it's in Michigan as opposed to California, two quite different regions, even though they're in the same football conference now. Schools in Michigan, schools in California in the Big Ten. Anyway, I digress. Sedgefield, I think, is a pretty good comp. It's another short course where keeping it in play on your first two shots and giving yourself plenty of looks is going to be valuable. Pebble Beach, I think, is a great one. It's in California. It's another course like this one where the fairways aren't super wide, but those landing areas are. And then the greens at Pebble are super small. So what does Pebble place an emphasis at more than anywhere else? Hitting greens, right? You're not going to make birdies if you don't hit greens. So I think that's another one that's good to look at. And then I think PGA West, home of the American Express, is another one. Just another California course with wide landing areas off the tee where you're going to have to make birdies to win. So those would be my 4 comp courses here this week. All right, so now that we know all that information, let's go ahead and take a look at the field, see if we can identify some guys we like in DFS and betting. So this field is quite an interesting one because it feels like it's quite top heavy, but yet not really. Like there are nobody that I would consider like on like the top 10 of the PGA Tour that are in this tournament, but yet there's 3 guys sitting at the top that are priced above everybody else who, in name recognition and for other various reasons, deserve to be at the very top, deserve to be ranked ahead of the rest of the field, right? So this is just, it's a very interesting field. Like I cannot stress enough how these PGA Tour fall events, that you get a really weird cross-section of players at these fields. You get a really weird list of winners at these fields. And one of the reasons why you get random winners in the fall is because you don't have recent form to rely on. Week to week on the PGA Tour, you've got guys playing 3-4 weeks in a row. You see exactly how they were playing golf 4 days ago from when the tournament starts, when the previous one ends, right? Even if they take a week off, it's 11 days ago, right? You know how they're playing very recently. At this event, most of the field did not qualify for the FedEx Cup playoffs, meaning that that's 3 weeks right there that they didn't play. And then, oh, by the way, there was a week off for the entire PGA Tour last week. So it's been over a month since we've seen a lot of this field play. So I'm really not valuing recent form all that much this week. I would much prefer either sustained success over last PGA Tour season or a player profile that makes sense. Have they played well in California? Are they, good with the driver? Are they good on approach? Are they good with the putter? I just think this is a week to not just ignore recent form, but not place an emphasis on it, because really for a lot of these guys that we've seen not play competitive golf for an entire month, we don't know what they've been doing. We don't know how they've been practicing. We don't know how they've been playing. I mean, unless you happen to be a member somewhere where some of these guys practice, which is like virtually zero chance, right? You don't know how these guys are playing. So I just think this is a week to look at the overall profile as opposed to recent form. Now, with that being said, let's take a look at the top of the board. So Sahith Theegala is sitting here at 10-6, and he is the defending champ of this event. Look, I think Sahith was playing quite poorly in the summer. Just a super run of inconsistent finishes, right? If he Starting in April, he finished second at the Heritage, followed it up with a 52nd. Missed the cut at the RBC Canadian Open. Fourth at the Scottish Open, missed the cut at the Open, T6 at the 3M, 48th out of 50 golfers at the BMW, and oh, by the way, he ends it with a third place finish at the Tour Championship. So Sahith has a super volatile profile. This is a guy who has the ability to get hot and win this event, clearly, as he did last year. He also had a 6th place finish and a 14th place finish at this event before that. But he also has the volatility to miss a cut or come in 49th place, right? So I think Sahith is much better as an outright bet this week or a play in GPPs and DFS. I don't think he is a cash game play. I don't think he's a top 20 bet, because if he's going to come in the top 20, he's going to have a pretty good chance to win the whole thing. Wyndham Clark is another interesting case study, right? So Wyndham is sitting here at 10-4 on DraftKings, and he really trended in the right direction at the end of last season, and he was a pick for the President's Cup. So this is very clearly a week for him to play and get himself in form for the President's Cup, right? Because he did not play well at the Ryder Cup last year, and I feel like he wants to redeem himself. And really, I feel like his resurgence starts at the Olympics, where he comes in T14, really gave it all away on Thursday. And everybody was saying after Thursday, oh, Wyndham should have been on the U.S. team, should have been Bryson, should have been somebody else, right? And he kind of used that to motivate him through the rest of the summer. T7 at FedEx St. Jude, T13 at the BMW Championship, 8th at the Tour Championship. And his approach play has been really good. With Wyndham, we always know we're going to have a long driver of the ball and a really good putter, specifically on polo greens. His approach play has been good in the last 4. He's motivated to come out and play well this week. He generally plays pretty well in California. I would personally rank Wyndham Clark as the top golfer on the board this week. Now let's talk about Max Homa. So Max Homa is the king of the Silverado Resort. Win, and then 7th last year in his last 3 starts here. The downside, he's playing awful right now. So here's what it becomes with Max Homa is, if you value course history and aren't valuing recent form, which is something that I said, I think you got to look at Max Homa this week. However, I'm devaluing recent form to a certain point. This is pretty bad, recent form. 33rd out of 50 players at the BMW, 70th out of 70 players at the FedEx St. Jude. That's not good. And he's not gaining strokes in any of the 4 categories really right now. So I don't really know what to do with him. It depends on whether or not you play Max this week, determines A, how much you value course history, but B, how much of a reset do you think he took in the last 2 weeks? Like Wyndham Clark, he's another guy that is playing in the President's Cup, was quite a controversial selection for the President's Cup, given how poorly he's playing. So he's motivated to come out and play well at an event that he's played well at in the past. I think Max is going to be by far the lowest owned of those 3 golfers. And I got to say, I'm kind of willing to pay that for him this week. Now, what I really think about this field, you got those 3 guys sitting there at 10K. I think this field gets bad quickly. And so what I mean by that is, I think you can make a DraftKings lineup where you pay for 2 of these guys in this field, and then really just kind of piece together the rest of your lineup. Like if you start Theegala and Clark, you've got an average remaining salary of $7,200, and there's a lot of plays, or $7,250, excuse me. I'll give you the extra $50 there. And there's a lot of plays in the 7K range that I think you could get to. I think that's a viable strategy this week, because I think the upside and the talent of those top 3 is just so much more than anybody else in the field. I really want to zero in and get a lot of ownership on those 3 guys. And I think the other way that I would build this week, if I'm not going to play those 3 guys, is I would really build through the low 9s and 8s and get super balanced and not get any scrubs in my lineup. And really, that would be how I would look at this week. Either I want to try to get 2 of the guys up top, or I want to get 3, 4 of the guys in the mid-range. That's really what I'm looking at this week. So in the 9K range, who am I looking at, right? Well, I'm not on Corey Connors this week. Had a great PGA Tour season, is a great ball striker usually, is a very poor putter. He's going to need to gain with the putter this week if he wants to win. Even if he brings his A-game ball striking, he's going to have to putt well this week to win. I don't like the chances of that. I don't like Corey Connors at these courses that place an emphasis on the putter. So out of the top 4 guys, I'm probably out on Corey Connors. Luke Clanton, supremely talented. Coming up from college and pretty much coming right on the scene at the U.S. Open and making the cut, 2 top 10s at the Rocket Mortgage, and then runner-up at the John Deere. And he's been really good, right? So the question is this fool's gold or is this the real thing, right? With Luke Clanton, he's such a good ball striker that I kind of put him in. I don't think he's quite up there with the top 3, but he would probably be the guy that I would play next as my 4th overall player. He has no history at this event, but with the upside is there. I don't think he's a bad look in DFS this week. I don't think he's a great bet to win this tournament outright because we haven't seen him win a tournament outright on the PGA Tour, but I think he's a solid DFS play at 9,500. Guy I really like, though, Maverick McNealy. So Maverick McNealy, great history in California in his career. Great recent form coming in. He was 3rd at 3M, 12th at the FedEx St. Jude, and didn't get to continue on with his FedEx Cup playoffs. We know Maverick can putt. We know Maverick can drive it. His approach play has not been great, but he's been so good in his other areas that he's been making up for it. And so if he can just dial in the irons a little bit, which maybe in the last month he has, if he can just dial in the irons just a little bit, this could really be Maverick McNealy's week. I think this is a great spot for Maverick McNealy. I also think this is a great spot for Min Woo Lee. When you think about Min Woo Lee, what are the 2 best aspects of his game? His driving and his putting. What does this course place an emphasis on? Driving and putting. Think about back to the Rocket Mortgage, right? That was one of my comp courses. He finished 2nd there. And I think this is a pretty good spot for him. If he can just be average with the irons, he has the upside to win this event. Min Woo Lee has not won on the PGA Tour yet in his career, but in his international wins, they seem to always come at Birdie Fest. They get to -20 or more. So this is the type of event that I think Min Woo Lee is going to be pretty good at. So interestingly enough, 2 of the best course history guys at Procore Championship are some of the shortest hitters on the PGA Tour. Brendon Todd is one of them. The other one is Chez Reavie, more on him in a little bit. But Brendon Todd's been playing some really good golf. And if you look at it, it's all been at short courses. So I think short courses that place an emphasis on the putter, you just roll out Brendon Todd. I think 9,100 is a little expensive for him, but this is the type of course that he excels at. He's definitely going to be in some of the builds like I was talking about where you get like 2-3 guys in the 9K and 8K range. Now, JJ Spaun is next up, and he's got everything trending in the right direction. The question is, was he able to hold this form over a month layoff? Because JJ Spaun, he's very similar to Corey Connors in that he is a very good ball striker of the ball and just a horrific putter. Well, over the summer, he got the putter going in the positive direction. That's where you see all the good finishes, starting with the T10 at the Rocket Mortgage. And his last 2 was a 9th at the 3M and a 3rd at the Wyndham. Look, if he's going to continue to bring the ball striking and the putting, he's going to win a PGA Tour event, and it's only a matter of time before he does. So I don't mind this spot for him. It's just a question of whether or not he held his form over the month off. Another guy that I like that I think is a great fit here is Eric Cole. He is a guy that was also kind of like JJ Spaun, trending in the right direction as the summer went on. He is not a great driver of the golf ball. He is both short and inaccurate, but I don't think that really punishes you here. He's a great wedge player. He's generally better at short courses. This is the type of course I think you play Eric Cole at, and he backs that up with a 6th place finish here last year. So Eric Cole at $8,700, like it a lot. Patrick Rogers at $8,600, like that a lot as well. There was nobody over the course of the summer who had more consistent finishes on the PGA Tour than Patrick Rogers. Just consistently made cut, finishing in around the 30s. Well, this event is not going to be a quality of field as the other ones he's been playing in. So I think that this is a pretty good spot for Patrick Rogers. He's a California guy, has a good history in California. I don't mind the play 8,600. And then you got Beau Hossler at 8,300. Look, if you're playing Showdown DFS and you're playing multiple lineups in Showdown DFS, Beau Hossler should seriously be in at least one of your lineups every single day because the guy can get scorching hot out of nowhere. Look at what he did at the Wyndham. He fired a 60 on day 1 and never around under 68 after that to finish in 12th place. But Beau has the profile of a guy who can win this event. He is a long driver of the golf ball who's not overly accurate. He is a good wedge player, but horrible long iron player. He's not going to have a lot of long irons this week because it's a short course. And he's a great putter of the golf ball, one of the best on the PGA Tour. And so you got a guy who can get hot with the putter, who his other aspects of his game suit the course well. He's not going to be punished for long iron play. He's not going to be punished for wayward drives this week. I think it's time to fire up Beau Hossler, and I think $8,300 is a great price to do it. I think nobody beneath him has the same upside that he does. If I were making like a more long shot bet to win this week, I think Beau Hossler would be the guy that I would consider because out of anybody down here, we know he has the upside to win. And then last guy I'm going to talk about for this segment, let's talk about Matt Kuchar. So Matt Kuchar, he had the Monday layover at the Wyndham, whatever you want to call it. But he, his last 2 starts have been a 3rd and a 12th. It's a guy that knows how to play on the PGA Tour. I trust him to hold his form over a month layoff, and he has great history at this event, 7th, 12th, and 36th in his last 3 trips here. Much like Beau Hossler, the deficiencies in his game, which is really at this point just lack of distance and lack of long iron and hybrid play, because Matt Kuchar really plays hybrids, is not going to hurt him here. So I think this is a pretty good spot for Matt Kuchar at $7,900. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick breather, and then let's talk about some value plays. All right, so technically one of these guys is priced above Matt Kuchar, but it made more sense to group these guys together. So there's 3 young guys on the PGA Tour that as the season went on, I kept getting them confused, right? Like just because the rookie tour of the PGA Tour class last year, the rookie class of the PGA Tour last year, I messed up my words there. They were very like what's the word I'm looking for? Non-celebrities, right? Like they didn't have their pictures on DraftKings for a while. They didn't really show up on the broadcast for a lot. Didn't really know what these guys looked like. Didn't really know what these guys' game was like other than numbers on a spreadsheet. And so these 3 guys I'm about to talk about, they all finished the year really strong. I don't necessarily think that they make for great outright bets in terms of upside for winning this golf tournament, but I think that all 3 of them, in terms of the profile we're looking for, ball strikers who can putt when they need to putt. All 3 of these guys are great ball strikers. All 3 of these guys have a great green regulation percentage. All 3 of these guys are in my DraftKings player pool this week, and that is Mac Meisner at $8,000. That is Patrick Fishburne at $7,500, and that is Jacob Bridgman at $7,400 on DraftKings. Those 3 guys are all going to make my player pool this week. They all have a pretty similar player profile. That's why I want to talk about them together. Now, you're looking for a low-owned DraftKings play. Let me present to you Nicholas Taylor, the Canadian. So I don't know if his full name is Nicholas. I'm hoping so. I do know that he is from Abbotsford, which is about a little bit north of Vancouver, actually pretty close to the Seattle border. Anyway, Nick Taylor, right? He's playing in the President's Cup next week. This is very clearly a tune-up for that President's Cup event because he's been quite bad over the summer of the PGA Tour. But this is the type of course you play Nick Taylor at. He has won at Pebble Beach, which is one of my comp courses. He is generally at his best at shorter golf courses. Think about his win at the RBC Canadian Open. And he has pretty good history. He has 3 top 10s here in his career. So $7,600, you got a guy who's motivated, a guy who has a history of winning on the PGA Tour, a guy who is at his best at this type of course. I like Nick Taylor at $7,600. I think he's one of your low-owned DraftKings plays this week because I think a lot of people are going to look at his recent form and just totally dismiss it. Now, also in the 7K range, there's a lot of guys who just profile as good putters. And when you talk about a course like Silverado where the tee to green game is kind of de-emphasized a little bit, we talk about green regulation percentage being super important, but the tee to green game here is not as important as somewhere like a Bay Hill or a Quail Hollow, where you just have to be elite driving the ball. You have to play well with all the clubs in the bag, long irons to wedges, and you have to leave yourself with good spots because you're probably going to have to be getting up and down, right? So in a course like this where green regulation percentage is going to be pretty high, playing the good putters makes sense because if those putters can just tread water and hit the same amount of greens as the rest of the field, they're going to make more putts than the rest of the field, right? So the guys in this range that are the good putters, you got Taylor Montgomery at $7,300. You got Justin Lower, $7,400. You got Ben Coles, $7,200. You got Pearson Coody, $7,200 as well. And then Justin Suh at $7,100. All of those guys fit the putter profile that I'm looking for. And those are 2 guys, or those are a group of guys from Montgomery, Lower, Coles, Coody, Suh. They're all going to make my DraftKings player pool just because if they get hot with the putter and they can just be okay with the tee to green game, they have the upside to win this event. Ben Silverman is a guy that I like a lot. He's $7,100 this week. So Ben Silverman kind of peaked in the summer, at the Rocket Mortgage and just kind of trended on backwards to a missed cut at the Wyndham, but that's the last that he's played. Ben Silverman is like a short course guy. 18th at the John Deere, 17th at the Rocket Mortgage, 35th at the RBC Canadian Open, 16th at Myrtle Beach, 32nd at Charles Schwab. All the short courses over the summer that he played pretty well at. And this is a guy who is another guy who can really get hot with the putter. So I think Ben Silverman, $7,100. I think he's a pretty good top 20 bet in terms of the betting market this week. I don't think he's a good outright bet, but I think he's a pretty solid guy to plug in your DraftKings lineup as like the 5th or 6th guy in and be pretty confident you're going to get a made cut. Be pretty confident you're going to get like a 20th place finish. All right, now dipping into the 6K range, there's not a lot here. Chez Reavie is the first guy that I want to talk about. So Chez Reavie, I lost him. Where is he? Hold on. There he is. $6,600 on DraftKings. Chez Reavie, Not in the best recent form, but great history at this event. In fact, one of the best histories at this event. He's played here pretty much every single year. He owns since 2015. So, in other words, the last 9 editions of this tournament, he owns a 3rd, a 13th, a 17th, and a 22nd. The downside is his 2 worst finishes have been in the last 2 years. But again, you think about Chez's game, he's a short hitter off the tee. He's a good wedge player. He's a good putter. This is a course that kind of emphasizes what he's good at and de-emphasizes what he's not good at. He's also an older guy who's been around the block on the PGA Tour, so I trust him with a layover, right? Like, it's been a month since he played, but if there's really these older guys who have played year in, year out on the PGA Tour, they know how to manage these layovers, right? They know how to keep their game in check. The younger guys, I don't know so much. So I trust him in that regard. I think $6,600 for a guy with one of the best course histories in the field is a pretty good price to pay. Now, another guy with pretty good price to play is Robbie Shelton. He's $6,800 on DraftKings, and he's played here in the last 2 years. He finished 19th and 21st in those 2. He's another guy that can get hot with the putter. He's generally a pretty good approach player on shorter courses as well. So I think this is a pretty good spot for him at $6,800. Do not mind the play. David Skins has this profile of, de-emphasized tee to green game, great putter at times. I don't mind taking a shot at him in DFS because when he plays well, he plays really well. If he doesn't, he's going to miss the cut. So I think he's a better GPP play as opposed to a cash game play. And then Henrik Norlander is another guy we got to talk about. His recent form is like sneaky good. The only downside is he's never made a cut here. That's kind of a red flag. But the recent form, right, over the summer, 11th at the Barracuda, 12th at the 3M, missed the cut at the Wyndham, did not make the FedEx Cup playoffs, but he continued to play in Europe. 53rd at the British Masters, 8th at the Omega European Masters. So this is a guy who has played recently. We know he's played well recently. He's at his best at short golf courses. He's at his best at birdie fests, even though he has no history at this event of any kind. That's good. Henrik Norlander at $6,800 is not a bad play in my opinion. Looking at the rest of the $6K range, like, there's a lot of guys in here that just I feel like you're not going to see a lot of ownership in the 6K range in DraftKings this week. You're going to see a lot of people try to keep their lineups above that kind of 7,100 mark, like where Suh and Silverman and Cootie were. I feel like you're going to see not a lot of people dip into the 6K range. So if you're looking for a way to get different this week, I think that could be a very good way to get different with your lineup, is to go down here and play somebody. Last guy I will talk about is Troy Merritt. So he's playing just straight awful recently, but we typically like Troy Merritt in Birdie Fest. We typically like Troy Merritt in weak fields, and that tracks with his history at this event. He has 4 top 16 finishes at this event. He plays it every year, so clearly he must think it suits his game. $6,700 for a guy who has pretty good history at the event. Not opposed to paying that as well. But that's really the last play that I want to talk about in the 6K range. There's not a whole lot of guys that I'm going to go down there and get. I'm really going to be keeping a lot of my focus this week in that 7K range with that group of guys that we talked about that can really putt the rock. All right, but that's going to do it for this week's preview. Like I said, it's a little bit shorter. I'm still going to have the article up on the Patreon as I do for every golf tournament. Let me get that graphic up on the screen. But yeah, I'm still going to have the article of the Patreon. I'm still going to be in the Fantasy Corner Discord, still going to be on Twitter just like I always am. But, this time of year, PGA Tour season, I don't want to say that it's on the back burner because I don't think that's accurate. I'm still going to be playing. I'm still going to be paying a lot of attention to it. But a lot of my attention and focus is going to be on college football. So that's why you get a little bit of a shorter episode here today. Maybe there's a guy I didn't find, but, I still got 2 more days to deep dive. And if I find them, they're going to be in the article on Patreon on Wednesday night. So anyway, that's going to do it for this week, guys. Taking a week off for the President's Cup because that is a really hard tournament to talk about in terms of betting in DFS. So I'll just be opting to do the football content for the next 2 weeks. We'll be back for the rest of the PGA Tour fall swing though. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you join us for that. And, back when we first started doing golf, we vowed to do everything 30 minutes or less domino style. And I think we made it this time. So, nice little quick preview. Hopefully gave you guys everything you know to pick out some winners. If this video helped you out in any way, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Join us for the rest of the fall swing as well as the rest of football season. All right, but that's going to do it, guys. Best of luck to you this week at the Procore Championship, and I will see you guys